Hi, my name is Luke Durbin. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. I'm 21 years old and I'm gay. I remember coming out to my first friend after struggling for 2 years with accepting myself. And I remember the knot in my throat and how bad that hurt. And, you know, that knot when you get before you start crying. And it almost kept me from telling her, but I had this great sense of security because she lived in another state, so I could call her and I could just hang up the phone. And I remembered feeling that that was the only push I had. I had nobody else pushing me to come out except myself. I knew I could just hang up on her if it all went south. But you know, I was very fortunate because the first person I told, her first words were, "I love you, and I'm very proud of you." It took me a long time to accept myself, and I remember admitting it to myself, because admitting and accepting are two different things. In fact, it wasn't until this year that I was able to tell somebody that I was gay without saying that I was bisexual, because I hid that. I would tell people I was bisexual just kind of to ease the pain for me and everyone else. It's a pretty funny story. I'm not like most people who knew their whole life. I just assumed everybody was like this. I remember back in high school, I'd look at a girl and I'd think she was really hot, or what I presumed was hot, and I'd look at a guy and I thought he was hot too, but I just assumed everybody kind of thought the same way, and it was only socially right to talk about the girls. But at 18, I learned it was a little different because I grew a little too close to one of my friends, and I hated the thought of it, and I fought myself for being gay. I grew up in a house where my parents hated, seemingly. They always criticized gays on the television and whatnot, and it was very, very hard for me. I grew up in a house where my mother, she was a hard-working, very social woman, and my father was also very hard-working, and he was your typical Fox News conservative man. My older brother, who, like any older brother, would always give their little brother shit, and I had an identical twin. And you know, it was really scary for my twin because people would always just assume that we were the same person, and I didn't want that for him. I didn't want that for any of my friends or family. And I remember coming out to my twin. He was watching TV, and I remember turning the TV off, and I told him, and the first thing that he told me back was, "Okay, that's fine, can you turn the TV back on?" And I was so furious. I just remember he turns the TV back on, and I grabbed the remote, and I immediately turned it off, and I said, "Are you sure? Like, are you okay with this?" And he said, "Of course I am. I mean, you're my brother, and nothing's going to change that." So, I told a few people. I eventually got more and more into it, and, you know, there were some people that took it in a bad way, and sometimes people would find out without me there, or me knowing that they knew, and it made me mad, but, you know, I can get over that. I remember coming out to my mother, because I was so afraid, as anybody would be, and in my eyes it was coming out to two parents rather than just one, but it was the first of two parents, so I knew that it wasn't going to be over after I told her. I made her a letter, and I left it under my TV in my bedroom, and I ran away to my friend's house. I texted her some instructions, and in the letter I left her instructions to just text me, and I got a text really late at night, and it simply said, "Luke, I love you, and I will always love you. Come home. I have 2 glasses of wine waiting on the island, and we'll talk all this over." Now, she had been into a little bit of wine, so her questions were a little weird, but I wanted to be as honest as possible with her. And, you know, I'm happy I did it. It gave me the strength to be able to, it made me feel like I could tell my older brother and my father, because I knew I had her on my back. And I did tell my older brother, which was very challenging, but I kind of had a screw-it moment one day where I picked up my phone, called him, and I just told him. He was very happy for me. And that was when I knew I had to tell my dad. It took a little bit of time, but I got the courage and I told him, and it did not go well. And that was very, very tough. It hurt really bad because when I told my mother and my brother, I realized that I didn't need them to accept me, I just wanted them to love me. And that was my big fear. And I'm glad that I figured that out, because that night that I told my father, he was at least able to manage to say that he loves me. Now, I want to take a moment because there isn't a need to worry about those little things, and you need to realize that some things are made up in your head. I was stressing so much about the fact that it didn't go well coming out to my father, when I should have been really concentrating on the fact that he really did love me. We went a whole week without talking, and don't get me wrong, it's been a while since then and we've talked about it here and there, but that week was really challenging. But I had my family, and I had my friends still, and I knew everybody loved me. And it's all going very well now. The last thing that I can say is that stress really can kill a person. If you hold it in too much, it can make you sick. And I was sick for a very long time until I opened up to myself. And eventually I could start opening up to other people. The only thing I can say is I wish I knew that back when I was 17. And if I could go back and tell my 17-year-old self, I would tell him how proud I was of him. And I would remind him of all the love that he has. I would tell him not to worry about those little things because they really can cripple a person. And I would tell him that it really does get better. Because it did. I mean, it's still getting better every day. Not quite there yet, but it's getting better. And it's a lot better than where it was. I'm very happy right now. And I want to tell all of you who watch this that don't worry. Just take your time with it. But it does get better.